Okay, so we can officially start. This is the Town of Olime's WPCA Design Task Force meeting. The members that are regular members are Steve Tsunami, Randy Nixon, Rob McCarthy, who currently is not here, but will try and join later. We have alternates. This is Rich Prendergast speaking. There are alternates Frank Chan and Jim Burge. At this point, I'm going to appoint Jim Burge to a full voting member in absence of Rob McCarthy. I'm also going to share the agenda because the agenda actually wasn't posted in enough time, so we need to make a motion to use the agenda. Let's see if I can share this Microsoft Text to see which this one it is. Okay. Right now, everyone should be seeing the agenda. Does everyone see the agenda?
Yes.
Okay. So I need a motion to accept this agenda for this meeting.
I make a motion. This is Randy Nixon. I make a motion that we accept this agenda.
Okay. Can I second it? That was Steve?
I'll second. Yeah.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor of WPCA in favor of accepting this agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. So tonight we also invited our engineers, Jason and Aaron from Wood and Curran. And I want to kind of do a little overview of this before we get into the actual agenda, or maybe this item number 2. We formed this task group away from the regular WPCA meetings because sometimes there are time-sensitive feedback we have to give to the design engineers, you know, as far as to keep things going and moving the process forward. This task force will hopefully be able to research and maybe meet at different times than the regular meeting to provide that answers. However, we will consider what we're being asked to do, and in some cases we may delay the decision or just decide to have the decision brought to the regular WPCA. What we do in this task force will be presented or updated to all the regular members for the regular WPCA meetings. And in my view, if there's ever a decision that people feel strongly, WPCA members feel strongly about, we can readdress that in the regular WPCA meeting. And I just wanted to give that background. Now, this task force runs like a regular meeting, Robert's Rules, Orders, and so forth. I've started this as the chairman, and I can appoint myself as the chairman. I am willing to let someone else be the chairman if they want, but that would be a motion that they'd have to present. But I don't want to be changing the chairman of this every week or every month, because I think we just lose consistency in order. So that's my overview. Are there any questions from the WPCA members? Okay. So the first item, item number 3, design review discussions, the WPCA comments on the DBR 60%. So the Wood and Curran engineers can explain it better than anyone. I'm going to just say we have a plan to do a 30, a 60, and a 90% of the design plan. And I believe that 30, 60, 90% gets submitted to the DEEP for Clean Water Fund checks, and they, they don't want to wait to the end to then have their review. They want to keep reviewing on the way to see that we're making progress and that we don't go off track. So the 30% was drafted. The 60% is what we have a discussion to look at. It's an incredibly long document. It's in draft form. We're still working it out. So that's the first item, and I've given some comments back to Wood and Curran that I don't need to address here. They're more typos, that kind of thing. But at this point, I'm going to talk to Jason and say, Jason, is there some things that should we pull up the document, or how should we go forward to reviewing the comments?
Yeah, we can go as detailed, or just keep it big picture, depending on people's level of interest in terms of drilling. How far down into the details do we want to drill? Rich, your comments I responded to. The typos. Yes, we fixed those before we sent them to deep. Some of the items were more clarifications, so. I don't know if you had a chance to review those. If you had any, follow-up questions based on those explanations.
Well, that one typo I had is in the 60% that I was sent. So I just assumed that you got it, but it didn't get changed yet. That was Shore Road versus Shore Drive.
On the 60% plans?
Correct.
Okay.
It's in a lot of support documents. So maybe the general text was fixed, but the support documents, like attachments and graphics and that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. Specifically the wetlands report.
Right.
Which is being updated now. Yes, before it goes to deep. Right.
Okay. So I could pull up the document, and there's some highlighted yellow stuff, but so I don't know the most efficient way to do this. I'm open to suggestions. I don't know if, Jason, I don't know if, well, first off, maybe our WPCA members had a chance to look at it and have specific areas, and I can go to that and we can discuss it. Does any WPCA members have specific concerns with the pipe layout or the?
I do on,
okay,
on, this is Steve.
Yep.
On sheet C208, if I'm reading this correctly, I don't understand it. It's sewer manhole 18. And it appears to me as though it appears to me as though the invert in is lower than the invert out. The invert in is at 0.11 and the out is at 0.21.
I'm trying to find my way back to the main thing to share. Let's see. Share.
Sheet 12 of 30 on the PDF.
Okay, let's see here. Get rid of some stuff here. Hang on, bear with me. Share. So the way I open this up, and for some reason it seems to come up like a website, and it's probably because of the OneDrive, and I'm trying to find it, but when I do share content, it doesn't show me the picture of what I'm doing. So I think I got it now. You should see Town of Old Lyme, Soundview, Town Beach. Does anyone see that?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, WebEx, I'm used to Microsoft Teams that puts a line around what you're sharing to kind of tell you what it is. So, Steve, can you tell me what page it's on?
Well, on the PDF, it's 12 of 30, and it's sheet C208.
Right. This is on the 60% drawings, and what's being shared is the 60% specifications.
Okay, so now I just switched over the drawing. Do you see the drawings now?
Yes.
Okay, so page 12.
On the PDF, sheet C208.
Yep.
C208. Okay.
So
So,
sewer manhole
go ahead.
sewer manhole 218, sewer manhole 18, has an invert of 0.11, invert in at 0.11 and an out at 0.21. And 0.21 is higher than 0.11. And I don't think that's what we want.
Correct. Yep. No, absolutely. Yeah. What I'm guessing happened is it should have been 2-1 in and 1-1 out, and it just got transposed. So yeah, so that's something we can that'll be corrected in the final version.
All right. That's you also switched from negative values to positive, so that could also account for that too, because if it was negative 1-1 and negative
0.1, exactly. Yep.
But,
so did you have something else, Steve?
the only other thing is, let's see, we have several manholes that we're tying into that are done by others. We're trying to, what the hell was that? It was on Portland Ave.
Yeah, down by the shore.
And I'm just, I'm not questioning the design. I'm just questioning how do I interpret it. It was with the drainage structures next to it. What the hell is it now? There were two.
C207 shows. C207 shows two of them on along Hartford Ave.
Yeah, those I understand because it appears as though sewer's leaving them. We have a gap. They're on an angle. What the hell is it now? Sorry, I can't write it down.
That's okay. I'm kind of almost rethinking this kind of questioning. I don't want to discourage it, but I was kind of wondering if there's things that we need things that Jason needs questions answered from us, assuming that they're going to go through all these stuff but I don't, so we can continue on in this, but I'm trying to figure out what the most efficient way of running the meeting. That's what I'm trying to do.
I mean, we could just write comments. I didn't know. I mean,
sure.
Yep. If you want us to write comments to you or to Jason or to whomever and say, that's fine by me. I don't care. I just want it. I'd like
sure.
It as close to the best we can get it so that there aren't change orders in the field.
Yeah. Okay. So why don't we do that? If you have a specific issue that you want to bring up that you want to be on writing, something that there's a question or decision to make. Yeah, that's the way to go to talk about it. Because there are items on our agenda that I think we need to talk about.
All right. Yeah. So by all means,
but I don't want to discourage it, Steve. So I mean, you're going to use your judgment.
If I could find it, I just wanted an explanation. Oh, here it is. Is it on Hartford Ave? Yes, it's on Hartford Avenue. It's sheet C207. I think that's what you had said before, and I skipped over it.
Okay. So is it the top view? I don't know if you can see that.
Well, you could look at the top view. Those two are installed by others. Those two manholes. They're interconnected at the bottom. It's a lower. They're drop manholes that we'd be tying into, but I don't see them going anywhere. I don't know if I'm missing something, or I don't see where the sewage goes after it goes into those two other manholes. It's the low point.
Yep, those two manholes are part of the Fuss and O'Neill, so they would be flowing, up on the page, towards the number 2, which is west. In that runs towards the pump station.
Okay. Okay, you
So-
just don't show it.
Well,
Right,
Rob,
because that's constructed by the Fuss and O'Neill contractor as part of that project.
Gotcha.
Steve,
Okay. So,
zoom in.
all right, I understand. So it's going somewhere, but it's not shown on this plan because there's no, it's not relevant to our construction purposes.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. All right. That was it. I mean,
Go ahead.
that
Any
was it for me.
other comment? Okay. Jason, are there things in this document that you want to point out to us or questions?
Yeah, this document is really, the first draft of what the contractor is going to see, in order to put together their bid price. I think the items on the agenda that we had sent you are more, big picture type items in terms of coordination with the beach associations, and because those could go, a couple of different ways, based on how the negotiations go. So, I think that is more discussed in the design basis report, the 30% document, than will show up in the 60%. The 60% is real minutia in terms of, grain size of the backfill and, thickness of the, manhole walls, things like that, it's obviously important for the contractor to know, but, at this stage in the project, I think, our bigger questions, more pressing questions are, what do the, our interface with the beach associations and the Fuss and O'Neill project, what do those look like? I think those are, higher on our list of priorities anyway.
Okay. So I'm going to switch briefly back to the Word document here. And I have a curiosity. Is Jay Sheehan's name actually Jerry?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I'm going to make fun of him for that. Or try to. There's nothing to me to make fun of that, but I never knew that. So I've been calling him Jay, for the last whatever time he's been with this project.
So Rich, Randy
Yes.
here, just if I may, so I have a series of questions about details. Shall I just put those in writing to you to be passed on to Woodard and Kern?
Well, so here's what I think. If there are questions about the design and stuff that you think that basically I'm not going to answer, then just write them and we'll send them off to Jason. If there are questions that you think that this group should discuss because the answer or interpretation is important, then let's discuss them. And I don't know if you're prepared for doing that right now. That's how I present it.
Yeah, no, that sounds fine. I mean, I have detailed questions on spec sections, materials. I was curious about the SDR selection for the gravity sewer, for example, 8-inch PVC versus the low pressure sewer SDR numbers and that kind of thing. So it's it gets down into the weeds a bit. It probably isn't helpful to the whole group. So I'm happy to put that stuff in writing and reference the drawing sheet or the sections where they apply. I mean, I guess the one sort of overarching question I have that applies to both this design, and I've looked at all the drawings and the specs, and pertains to the interface with the Fuss and O'Neill common asset stuff, if I'm using the right nomenclature. I want to be sure that we're paying attention to anything that's buried in this soil that we know is likely to be corrosive. And I like the choice of the PVC pipe. I think it's a prudent one, and so but those are the kind of things I'll be interested in is what the materials are and how we're preventing long-term corrosion and ensuring that things like backfilling, quality control is emphasized, because PVC pipe, its weakness is its brittleness, and so backfilling becomes essential. Backfilling properly with the appropriate backfill material becomes really important. So those are the kind of things I want to get into. I'll put them in writing to you and submit them that way, and that will be more efficient for the whole group.
That sounds like a great idea. It's like a punch list, all questions you can come up with, and hand them off through Jason, and Jason can coordinate a response.
Yep,
so
great.
There's some questions that you kind of made me wonder. Is one is, looking at this document, toward the end of the document, there talks about some liability issues. And Jason, I don't know if this is the right question for you or maybe someone else. I'm thinking that we have to have this document go through our legal team. Or has Wood and Curran already included that into it?
A lot of the legal language is based on EJCDC. It's a consortium of engineers and municipalities that have essentially negotiated these common terms and conditions for the contract. But if the legal department from the town wants to review and offer comment on it, then yeah, absolutely. That's something that's typically done. Yep.
Well, so we'll probably have to figure that out, because that's an expense, and this is 700 plus pages. And we get billed by hour.
Yeah.
And
But
I don't know if it's
stuff,
redundant.
The legal stuff is only general conditions and special conditions, really.
Right.
It's about 70 pages out of the whole document.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. The other stuff
you understand my point,
related
though.
to the job itself. The other stuff is specking out backfill, pipe, concrete, all that other stuff, which isn't a legal. It's not a legal description. It's a description of the product that they have to submit on and make sure that they hit. I review literally hundreds of these things, and after the first 10, I pretty much skipped over the general conditions because they are all the same. But they are important. They are important. The special conditions are even more important because they modify the general conditions of the contract. So, if you wanted someone wanted to look at the special conditions. I mean, the general conditions are literally in almost every single contract I've ever looked at. The special conditions are specific to each contract, and so that would bring it down to probably 20 pages of review if you want to save money.
Well, I don't want to waste money. I do want to save money, but saving money sounds like we're taking a shortcut. I don't want to take a shortcut. So my point is, had someone from someone's legal team looked at this, and I'll have to have a discussion with Tim Griswold, because ultimately we use the town's legal department, and we probably need to have our legal take a look at it when it's closer to being done. And maybe our insurance carrier with the insurance requirements that are listed in that. But it's just that's one of the questions that I had.
And Rich, we have a kind of a boilerplate letter that we send if a town is going to be doing a legal review that highlights some of the key decision points in those general and supplementary conditions. Things like insurance requirements and dispute resolution. Do you want to require it goes to arbitration? Things like that. The town council sometimes has an opinion one way or another, so that could help, focus them on their review as well.
Yeah. So what I learned recently is that in order to get clean water funds, we need a letter from our council saying that everything's done, everything's right. And I don't know if they have to consider this before they write that letter for us. And that legal counsel letter is a key part of getting our request for clean water funds approved. So it's something that we have to check on. And it's good to hear that Win Current has a general letter for council to kind of focus them on issues that are usual and customary. Okay, let's see if does any other WPCA members have specific questions they want to bring up on either the design or the design drawings or the document? And I hope you're not going crazy with me scrolling down.
Okay. Rich, this is Jim. I just got a general question on, I didn't see anything built in as a contingency for the excavation of any possible unknowns or knowns based on the history of the beaches. My experience, working at Electric Boat, we found during our excavation a lot of contamination. Not that there would be anything along the beach, but what if anything is found during the excavation? How is that going to be dealt with?
Dynamite?
A big
I don't know. I mean, I know we have contingency in the planning, the financial part of it. We have safety factors built in. I don't know, Jason or Aaron, do you have some experience you could lend to us about that kind of situation? Or trying to dig, and I know we're doing surveys to try to help map out what the structure is.
There's no dumps or anything that could be 80, 100 years old or anything that used to be in the area.
Yeah, we did the archaeological survey. They didn't flag any, special conditions that we would need to consider. Similar, we did some, borings that didn't turn up anything unexpected, in those, subsurface explorations. But, to that point, sometimes we will have on the bid form a line item, an allowance for, a specific contingency if they run into, an old oil spill or some other sort of contamination that, it is unforeseen. You don't know it until you start excavating, but that can certainly be included in the final bid form.
Thank you, Jason.
Just to add on to the archaeological assessment, the archaeologists will be monitoring construction also, just in case they do run across something of like historical significance. We're not really thinking that's very likely, but it is a possibility that's included in there.
Yeah, that's 1925-ish is when these people started using this area. Okay, so a little bit from my work experience, is there something I didn't see it in here where we have a third-party inspector inspecting the project? Basically a third-party inspector, in case you're not aware, is someone hired by sometimes the company or as part of the contract, but their job is to make sure that things are being done appropriately. And the classic example is checking the pipe materials, that they're to spec, that they are what they're supposed to be, and the location that they're supposed to be in, and doesn't do 100% inspection. It's sampling inspection. So is there anything that built into this document already?
There's nothing built into the construction documents. That's something that, we typically would have a resident project representative on site checking those exact things, and monitoring the contractor's progress, for payment, but also, assuring they, conform with the contract requirements in terms of materials and methods.
Okay.
I had the same question, Rich. So good question.
Maybe that's something the WPCA members have to consider. And, generally rule of thumb, well, there's no rule of thumb, but I've seen jobs of third-party inspection be like 0.0001% of the project costs. So we might want to consider figuring that out. Jason and Aaron, do you have any experience having third-party inspection agencies on jobs? And is there any problems that you are familiar with that situation?
So would this be someone, on site monitoring the work, or is this more of a, oversight, kind of spot checking type thing?
So normally what I would suggest to happen is they do an inspection plan as part of the project, so the project is figured out what you're going to do, and they work to your schedule. And the inspection plan has some witness hold points, something like forced main down the middle of the street connecting to the actual pump station wet well. Okay, so they're there for that inspection to see the fit up is correct, as an example. They're not doing everything. They're just doing key things. And the idea is that the key things will identify if there's screw ups there, then it kicks into more inspections or more concerns if things are done right. But if everything's done right, it assumes that, it assumes that other things, that are little details that aren't done correctly. All right. We'll take that as an action item to discuss. I'm going to try and go back and share the what's it called? Agenda.
Hey, Rich, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My mute thing is doing funny things, but I was going to say my experience is because, and this has nothing to do with my business, but we provide that kind of service, and we wouldn't be involved here, obviously, because of conflict. But the hold point approach is the right approach. I agree, and defining what those hold points are based on the design and the contractor's schedule seems very appropriate from my point of view to make sure we get this right.
Yeah, I mean, generally what it is, it's sometimes when financing big projects, banks will require it because they basically don't want their investment to go south. That's kind of the normal thing. And I think we're kind of the same thing. We don't want this to go south. And I'm not saying it will, but so we can take that up as a discussion point. So I was going to move off, unless there's something else, onto the next item on the agenda.
Rich, this is Jennifer. I just wanted to mention that to tell Randy that I'm the one that's muting him behind the scenes. So when he's not speaking, just to make it a little bit easier for people to hear the other people talking.
Okay. Mystery solved.
Mystery solved. So when you want to speak, obviously unmute, but then mute yourself when you're finished with the statement.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
That's probably a good rule of thumb, good practice, anyways, to mute yourself. That way, somebody interrupts in your household, no one else hears it. Like your wife asking you how to set up her computer while you're in a meeting. So 3B, status of discussions with adjacent beach associations, specifically allowing the gravity connection or low pressure sewer connection into the areas of miscellaneous town area B. This is a big discussion, and it's also the second one, approximate flow of unmetered properties. For those of you, just a reminder, the Soundview Sewer Project is, the geography looks like a T. The miscellaneous area B extends to the left and the right of the Soundview project. And one might think that is in Miami Beach property and Old Colony property, adjacent properties, and it's actually not. North of 156 is town-owned property or public property. It's not part of those associations. And as I understand it from Jason's discussions in the past, if we have the flow come down from those sections of the T on the left and the right directly into the Old Colony and Miami pipes, it's gravity. If we don't, we have to come up with some ideas. And one of the ideas is a electric powered grinder pump that grinds and also pumps those far sides into the gravity trunk. And we have to come up with a solution to that. So I will tell you what the discussions we had with the private beach associations. It's tough to get a read on it because there are so many things that are going on. But what one of them said, and who's a fair much a leader, is we need to have it metered. We can't just have it flow going, even though we're talking about maybe 5 or 6 houses. And the scenario is, let's say that flow just goes directly in, and we say we can propose here's a standard amount of volume, that an average amount of volume that we think those houses will do, and that's what we'll agree to saying without a meter. And something happens, and that's like someone's toilet goes berserk and they're flushing like every 5 minutes, and they just use a hell of a lot more volume, which may sound far-fetched, but people have had water breaks, and they've used an incredible amount of water in the past. So they might be a little annoyed at that. The other thing that I've heard, and I'm summarizing all this, I'll let Jason jump in and correct me when I'm wrong, is those pipes having a meter system on it. If the volume in the pipe is not full all the time, it's hard to get an accurate reading. And I haven't looked into this myself, but I know if you're looking at like a ultrasonic on the outside, that having a solution and then having no solution is a different result. If you're using like a paddle wheel inside, I think in this system that would probably has a chance for clogging or getting destroyed. So I think metering it is not a good robust system. And having an electric grinder pump is not the best system for those residents, because what might happen is when the power goes out, they can't flush their toilet. I don't know if we have a little community tank and then one grinder pump that goes from there to the, like a lifter pump that goes from there to the gravity system. And I think the final thing was, if we try to set it up so it's gravity feed, that puts everyone else's pipes further into the ground, which is possible, but maybe more expensive. So I just outlined a number of things. And Jason, first off, can you kind of go through what I just said and see if I did it right and if we have this understanding?
Yeah, no, you summed it up very nicely, I think. Yep. Okay,
so what we could do for an action item is present something to the private beach associations. I presented the question, would you guys let us connect the pipe? So they, the one person came back and said, the only one that did answer said, well, we have to have it metered. But what do you guys feel about having, the 9 houses, and then we do the calculation, 2.39 people times 75 gallons a day. And we figure out the amount of gallons that we would say per day that house would use, or that group of houses would use, and say a more formal way of requesting. We plan on honoring this amount, this average amount, and see what they think. Or did anyone have other ideas or things that we need to do? So this is an open discussion.
Rich, this is Jim. I think the average would be the best way to go, rather than having any meters that could cause additional maintenance issues, especially with an electrified grinder pump macerator. I think we'd have more trouble with that.
Yeah, Jason, can you comment, or maybe Aaron, I don't know about if I was right about the meters being, or maybe Randy, you have experience on this, about the reliability of measuring flow in that type of situation.
I'm not an expert in that area, but where I have run into it, the ultrasonic meters are not reliable if the pipe is not running full. That's what I've been told in projects I've worked on. I mean, Jason or Aaron can weigh in on that, and probably not probably. I'm sure they know more than I do about that. But that's my understanding. I don't like the idea of an inline mechanical flow meter or the grinder pump, because I think Jim is right that we want to try to minimize maintenance issues and clogging issues and so on that we could run into.
Right. Yeah. Going to a dry pipe, where, especially if you're talking about just a few properties in the middle of the night, it's absolutely going to be a dry pipe, and you reduce accuracy. And then there's also the issue of cost. The meter manholes themselves that we're proposing for the larger areas, they're what did we talk about? Maybe $30,000 a piece. So putting a $30,000 investment, to measure the flow from 2 or 3 houses, as opposed to just taking an average flow. Yes, if washing machine hose bursts, or someone's has a pipe burst, toilet running, that certainly they could contribute more than average, under special conditions. But to absolutely meter the flow, it's a significant capital investment to measure the flows from just a limited number of parcels.
Okay.
Yeah, question for you, Randy. Here, what do we have a sense of what the cost is if we go to the gravity approach? I realize it affects depths on other piping, but have we looked at that cost difference?
To go with all gravity?
Right.
Yeah, we had estimated, and this is in the August design basis report, we had estimated it's a little bit over $1 million more to go with that real deep piping. That's a lot of that is due to the sandy soils and the high groundwater. To get that additional depth, it really increases the complexity and the cost of the dewatering.
How much money was that?
It was a little over $1 million.
That answers that one.
Yeah, we have gotten some pricing from dewatering subcontractors, and yeah, they have confirmed it's pretty pricey the deeper you go, and it just kind of exponentially gets more expensive.
So just so I'm clear, because I'm a little thick on this, the gravity system that we're just talking about right now is this scenario where the left and the right, the east and the west sections, they're gravity fed pipes, and the net result is when to get over to the center trunks that go down Soundview area, those have to be lower, deeper in the ground. And because that's deeper in the ground, this is what you're talking about, the $1 million plus, and it's dewatering and to get the pipes in there and stuff. Is that do I have that correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, especially the northeast area, because then to get that back up Shore Road towards Hartford Avenue, you're essentially bucking grade. So the gravity pipe is going down, meanwhile the grade is going up. So you end up with a manhole that was 15 or 16 feet deep if you go all by gravity.
Okay, so the grinder pump scenario where it's not gravity, did you intend to say it's a grinder pump for each house, or is it gravity feeds to a manhole cover and then from there a grinder pump lifts or whatever to the gravity section? Is that, can you clarify, or is it both options?
A grinder pump option. The grinder pump is for an individual parcel.
Okay.
Just a question, Rich, is there any chance we could negotiate some kind of reasonable annual fee with the beach associations for that rather than?
Well, I've tried. So I started with just a generic discussion and a graphic that Wood and Kern provided, and they came back to metering. Now, bear in mind, it was like 30 items in the discussion, and that wasn't on the item list, so they probably didn't really give it a good fair shot. And what I'm hearing now is the formal request of having them consider it, because it seems like the right thing to do financially and from a reliability point of view. Because let's just confirm, the grinder pump scenario is that scenario where if the power goes out, that particular house can't flush unless they have a generator.
Yeah, and you'd have one for every dwelling. I mean, that's just too complicated, I think.
Yeah, well, I think what happened is we might be able to offer some kind of assistance in installing the whole system, as a way to compensate the people. I don't know if we're talking about offering a generator, although generators are pretty cheap to buy, especially after a couple of years where we don't have any storms, but used ones at least. But okay.
And the grinder pumps do have a small reservoir, so you would be able to flush once or twice.
Right. Okay. All right. So there was something else I was thinking about this. What was it? Grinder pumps.
A question for Jason, and is what you talked about, Rich, the concept of having a little mini pump station, is that worth at least finding out a price of what that would be to let them all go gravity and then have one pump station essentially for that little mini neighborhood?
Jason? So I didn't realize, Rob, that you joined us, so thank you for joining us. We're still keeping Jim Burge as alternate. That's fine. There's no rule about having more members. But Jason, what do you think about Rob's question?
Yep, right. That's something that comes up fairly often. Typically, what we found is the cost of a single municipal pump station. You really need to have 20 or more grinder pumps in a clustered area to make the investment in a municipally owned duplex station worth the investment, because these grinder pumps, I think the cost of the pump itself is like $6,000 to $8,000. Total installation is a little bit more than that, but to do a municipally owned duplex station with a generator, those are typically the minimum you can do that for that is in the $250,000 to $300,000 range. So if you're talking about the northeast area of miscellaneous town area B, it's only 7 or 9 parcels. So to build a $250,000 pump station as opposed to 9 grinder pumps at $10,000 to $15,000, completely fully installed, that's why you use grinder pumps when you're just talking about these limited number of parcels.
Okay, good. All right. I don't know what I was trying to think of, so maybe it's come back to me later in the middle of the night. I think I have a good feeling that I'm gonna present a renewed interest to try to convince the private beach associations to allow gravity feed connection across 156 into their existing pipes, so it's all gravity, robust, lowest cost. I'm not going to get into any deals as far as money goes and stuff like that, but see what we can come up with and get them to understand without mentioning the amount of monies involved. Section 3BII, the method for approximate flows of unmetered properties. Jason, is this covered already, or is this a different topic that we should talk about?
Right. This is the same topic we were just talking about on these outlying areas. Yeah. How do we measure flows? Do you somehow get the Connecticut water data for parcels that have a Connecticut water meter? Do you just approximate it based on number of bedrooms, something like yeah? So this is basically what we've just been talking about.
Okay. So the next item is C, coordination from Beach Association projects, the schedule of coordination. Install a gravity sewer on Portland Avenue and Shore Road before the force main. So I had got some discussions from some of the members of the Private Beach Association on this in Fuss and O'Neill. Number one, we're going to have structured events where Fuss and O'Neill and Wood and Kern will be invited to some discussion, work group or something like this to discuss issues that are related. And one concern that the beach associations have is they don't want Woodland and Curran to stop their progress. And I relayed to them that is not what Woodland and Curran is going to do. I think Aaron and Jason, you know that as well. You've got a design and you need to have questions answered for your design, how it interfaces with their design. And the state expects this. So one thing that I will also point out is that the WPCA members haven't seen it yet, but in our next regular scheduled meeting, we have a proposal from Fuss and O'Neill on how to coordinate with them. And we'll go through that at that point. Let's see. The run order is in a specific question has been up in the air. So you may or may not know that there's a private citizen that they did an easement with, and that citizen uses his property during the summer. So the schedule would likely be that they might have to. Well, here's something interesting that Jason and Aaron might be able to comment on or confirm. Fuss and O'Neill said that the way they build the system is they start from the low point, like the pump house and the wet wells, and then from there they build outward with a slope increasing. So it seems as if that they will try to do some parts in order, but like this private assessment or private easement for this one property, they won't be able to operate during the summer or like construct it. So they might have to do everything around it and then do that outside the summer. Related to 156 and the force main, they're working with the DOT to coordinate in getting the permits, number one, but also installing the force main and then repairing the road with a general patch or a small patch or something like that prior to the DOT repaving the road, which they're scheduled to do. And it looks promising that will happen, and that will be more efficient and save the state and us money because we won't be repaving it twice. I think when we have a more coordination between Wood and Curran and Fuss and O'Neill, that we'll have these schedules, and I think that's one thing that we're missing is the schedule events and the schedule, what I call the run order of what street gets done first, what sections get done first. And I think they have it themselves, so they have an opinion of what they have, and it depends on permits, it depends on easements, it depends on schedules like for the DOT. But what I was told is they start from the lowest point and build out, which tells me you don't have much flexibility, but I don't know if that's true or not. So, Jason, do you want to comment if I missed anything or covered anything on this item?
Yeah, the only question I have is on Shore Road is, you know, we also have the gravity sewer there, so any sort of paving and force main installation, we want to, in my opinion, the gravity sewer is the deepest. That one should go in first. You don't want to put in your new force main at 5 feet deep and then put in a gravity sewer right, you know, immediately adjacent to it. That's you know, 8 or 10 feet deep. You could undermine it, or you know, there is the possibility that the new force main could get damaged. So obviously we do everything to avoid that. But if it was one contract, they'd put in the deep pipe first. So we want to get that onto the schedule for Shore Road and in Portland Avenue as well.
Okay. Any WPCA members with questions, concerns about this item?
I do. Can you hear me?
Are you speaking?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Rich?
I can hear you now.
Oh, when you're talking about putting a schedule into a contract, you're talking about means and methods, which could increase the cost over not putting in any. Usually, the contractor will decide how they want to attack the project, and a large company may have 2 or 3 crews doing different streets on the same, you know, especially in sewer work, it's manhole to manhole.
That's important to note. I didn't really realize that, but you're right. The more you put in, the higher the price goes.
So, I mean, if it's
so project, maybe we don't need to do that. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. If it's critical to project schedule, you know, it should go in there. All I'm saying is it's unusual to see that, but I did work where you have to do certain sections at certain times because of whatever. I would imagine that this contract is going to have no work during the summer. I can't imagine doing sewer work down Hartford Avenue in the middle of summer.
Well, old Lime Soundview project will have it, not planning on doing work during the heart of the summer. I can't say the same for the private beach associations. They're managing that on their own.
Well, right. I'm just saying our portion of it. I couldn't imagine that happened. So I mean, there are circumstances which that's done, but in general, and I've read things where they have suggested installation schedule. Let's say, you know, you do this, but it's been very rare that I've actually been directed on how to do the work.
Okay. Well, it's just the thing, like if we do a schedule and the schedule goes out and that gets finalized, and by the time like 156 is done with the work, DOT won't wait, and they'll pave, and then we'll rip up the roads, and then they'll make us pave it again. That's the thing that I think that's worried about, because it's like $1 million issue. So, you know, and to me, I don't know what you guys think, but 156 is not bad to me. I mean, the road, I don't know. They say the road needs repair, but I don't think it's. I've driven a lot worse roads. Let me put it that way.
Who is we're not even bidding the force main, are we? Isn't that in the private beach association package?
They're doing it, but remember, we're joining the cost sharing group.
I understand.
So they are bidding it. Yes. Yeah, they're in the process of getting together on their bid. So.
Right.
And they have somebody who is a Olyme resident that is kind of an expert on DOT. He retired from there, and he's working with them to convince the DOT, in their own words, to wait. So I think that's fantastic for us.
Yeah. Hey, this is Randy. I was just going to say, I agree with Steve putting too many schedule requirements in this contract would just add cost. But I think it's not unusual to put some key milestone points in the contract, such as that would be related to repaving of 156, for example, so that the contractor has some way to to work around that and know they're going to want to put the deep pipe in sooner than the shallow pipe anyway. I mean, but I think we could consider milestones that were critical without adding a lot of cost.
Okay. I'm taking notes on that. Good. Let's see. So item C, double I, require usage of the same manufacturer, metering, manholes, manhole covers, etc. Does that mean, Jason, we have 4 beach associations? If we count Soundview as a beach association, or 4 entities is probably better. 3 beach associations in Soundview that we all combine our purchasing power. Is that what that item is?
That would be one way of doing it, or the thought here was if there's going to be a single entity eventually maintaining the meter, just use the metering manholes for as an example. If there's going to eventually be a single entity managing, the Miami meter, any Soundview meters, the Old Colony meter, do we want to have standardization so it's all the same? Pick one rather than, without any guidance. If we just allow the low bid contractor, you might end up with 3 different technologies, 3 different manufacturers, which makes spare parts more complicated. It makes maintenance more complicated. So whether it would be, who would pick who that manufacturer is, there's a couple of different ways we could do that. But, is there a desire to standardize on some of these common elements between the projects?
Well, I vote for standardization. Everything that can improve efficiency and reliability, that's my thing. That's actually something I like doing. So, and I think right now, if Fuss and O'Neill's picks somebody that's all the same meters, the only thing is that Wood and Kern would have to take a look at what they're choosing to say if it fits a good supplier. So we probably we'd have to put that as an item that we want to check off between the 2 engineering firms as far as their specifications.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so we'd have to coordinate with Fuss and O'Neill, right?
Does anyone else on WPCA have a comment, position on that?
I do.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Steve.
I think standardization on like the metering is probably a good idea, because even if you want a spare meter, you would be able to put it in one of the 4 places or whatever on hand. So on that, it's not as important for manhole frames and covers, which foundry it comes from, Campbell or whatever other foundries you have, though it's somewhat nice. Certainly valving would be important. Some valves open right, some valves open left. You don't want to reverse those in the same line as New London has in certain areas. So there's on the let's say critical components, I would say standardization is probably a good idea. On manhole frame and cover, if it's a little more money, doesn't really matter. But if it was like $200 more frame and cover, it's basically the same frame and cover. Usually once you lock into a foundry, that's where you're going to get all your, ours will probably be stamped old line WPCA on the frame and cover, so people know whose it is. The beach associations may be stamped something else, but once you go in with a foundry, you're usually there for quite a while.
Agreed. Okay. Moving on, I guess. Status of Fuss and O'Neill amendment with coordinated items. Jason, is this item the proposal from Fuss and O'Neill to coordinate items? Is that the question here?
Correct. And yeah, based on our last correspondence, they essentially have put us on hold until they have an amendment, was what I kind of read between the lines in their last email. So it sounds like you're in discussions with them and the Beach Association. So I just wanted to make sure that was, or, just get a status update on that. And it sounds like things are progressing on that front.
Okay. What's interesting is this is what's great about this little item in this discussion. I didn't know that part. I didn't know that they were holding off. But we will set a motion and a discussion and a probable motion at the WPCA meeting next week. I'm pretty sure it'll be successful from past experience of how these things go. And I will say that Wood and Kern has been fantastic in helping us with this process. Couldn't do it without you. And I'd also say that Fuss and O'Neill has been instrumental in bringing the private beach associations together, and then bringing them together with us as well. So it seems to be it's a good item. It surprised me, and it also surprised me that they stopped sharing until this is done. But I guess that's how you do it in business, and that's leverage. Because they didn't tell me that. So, but I took a note. Any questions on that before I move on to the next item? Okay. So the status of the Research and Health Department records. This is a big issue, and I'm going to do a little overview, and then I'll invite Rob if he has any updates to add on to this. So what I understand it is we have to identify wells private wells in the area to be sewered. And originally I was told we have to identify wells that are 25 feet from the main trunk line. And that's still true. What I've learned more recently is we also have to identify wells that are 75 feet from a lateral or a collection line. And we have started the process of looking at wells. And what I've also learned is, and I still don't understand this, that, how do I say this? I thought that we had to identify wells that are private, that have a permit, and where the location is the well, and we basically put that on a grid. What I think to understand now is that we have to put a map of every well or every house and their source of water, because we have some houses that are mysteriously don't have a permit, don't have a well, and don't use Connecticut water. And a couple of those houses, okay, it's a field, it's a lot, and a couple of those houses are abandoned. But then there's others that I think it's still a mystery. And I think really the real mystery is they have an illegal well, or it's not illegal, but the documentation has been lost. I've also heard that. So at this point, I invite Rob if you have any update, because you were working a little bit on trying to identify well locations, and if you've learned anything else, or if you want to correct me on things that I've said.
Other than the list that I sent, I don't think I've seen anything since that time, because I thought Jen was kind of tracking that down, and if Jen's still on, she might be able to answer more.
Yeah, I'm here, and we started the project, and then my time has been reallocated to the town clerk for the election, so I put it on hold.
Okay. It's not urgent, so to speak, for us. But for us to submit our design, we have to have that done. I'll also add that the private beach associations paving the way on this because they're ahead of us and they're going through it. And what I've told is the Department of Environmental Energy Protection, the director or the head person, can actually overrule the Department of Health, which, listening to the Department of Health, you can't do that. So Fuss and O'Neill is making an energetic explanation of how to manage this because there are some wells in their areas that's it's impractical to abandon the well for whatever reason. And the original plan when we did this program together was that we'd use higher grade pipes. So they're using double sleeved C900, pressurized pipes that normally used for water mains, but they're using it for septic. And that extra thing might be acceptable when there are no other choices to do this. The Department of Health can do a waiver, but the Department of Health apparently does not want to do that in general. So we need to work on this. We need to learn from the private beach associations what they have done and what their experience has been. And they'll give us some guidance on that. And once maybe the voting is done, Jennifer's time is reallocated back, we can figure out some of that stuff. So it is a real important issue. But does anyone have any questions about that? I will check with the Wood and Curran person that does the applications for funding to see if there's, I think that we can submit our design for funding without having that nailed down. Because I think the first part of it is our design. I think for the construction part, you have to have that nailed down. Obviously, you can't start constructing if you don't have a plan for, handling those wells. But I think from the design point of view, I don't know. I'll have to check on that.
That's my understanding as well, Rich. Yeah, I think that's part of the design process is, nailing down how many of those wells and then, what sort of accommodations you have to make to account for those.
Yeah. So that's our first design task force meeting. And as I said in the opening comments on this, and I see the agendas on the screen, I think everyone can see it. I know we may not have felt like we've got anything done or made any motions, or something like that. I think that's okay. Part of it is coordination and understanding at a deeper level that we can't normally do. There will be other things that come from Jason, who's our project. I'm not sure what you are, Jason, but the guy that gives me questions. And we'll, try to bring him up in this meeting to try and research them and figure it out. So is there something else that we want? It's not on the agenda, so if it's part of something existing item that we did, we can talk about it. Is there something else that anyone wants to talk about, WPCA members?
Just a quick question, if I may.
Sure.
So do we get, we're going to have an opportunity because we're helping to pay for it to look at the design documents for the common assets that Fuss and O'Neill is working on too, right?
Correct. I believe they sent an early draft to Wood and Curran, so I believe we can get a copy of it.
Yeah, we can share what we have. Yeah, it is an early draft. We don't have their latest, but yeah, we can definitely share that with you.
That would be helpful. Thanks.
Yep.
Okay. Writing myself down a note. Need Fuss and O'Neill. Okay. And it is kind of, you know, just on that note that it is a requirement from the state, the DEEP, for both engineering firms to coordinate with each other. And that's why it's in our design scope that we approved for this project to have that coordination and have Wood and Kern look at the design. I will say that there was some discussion about should there be two pipes, force mains, a small and a large. And Fussell O'Neill's design is I guess just one pipe, an 8-inch, leaving the town bowl line. And they have gone back and forth on the design issue and determined that that's the way to go, and that it handles the volume that they need to handle. It has the extra capacity, should well, to handle peaks, but also to handle the entire sewer project area that we've talked about, which is the Sound View additional to their design, as well as the potential for Hawks Nest in the future. So we'll get more on that design to look at as well. So with that, if there's no other comments or questions, we can have a motion for adjournment. Is there a comment or question someone wants to talk about?
Rich, the one last thing that we had talked about was when all the corrections are made to the DBR in terms of a procedure for reviewing that before it's officially submitted to DEEP.
So, is that the 60% Word document that is that what we're talking about?
Correct. Well, it was sent at the end of August.
So I guess right now we're reviewing it. So I guess, you know, Randy had some comments, questions, and Steve made some tonight. From a timing point of view, we have some other documents that need to be signed, but we probably should have a target of trying to finish this by the end of October and be ready to submit. How does that go with your schedule or what you're thinking, Jason?
Yeah, I think, yeah, by the end of October, that works.
So we'll have to get on it, and we'll bring it up as the comment in our regular WPCA meeting if we have to have everyone review it. That's a challenge because the document is so large that I'm going to need WPCA members to either agree that to let the engineers do the work or to make sure that they do their due diligence and look at the document. And you know, we'll figure that out, but we can't delay because it's such a large document. And some people that want to take over a couple of months, we don't have that luxury. We are, you know, actively trying to further the project so we can catch up with the private beach associations and sync up with them from construction point of view, but also the start date. We don't want to be lagging on the start date when the system gets turned on, because that would just put us in a disadvantage. Okay, Jason or Aaron, any other comments?
Nope, none from me.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn from the WPCA members. I didn't hear any.
Rich, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. I second it.
I'll second it.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. No, any discussion? I got that order mixed up. It's an adjournment. We all get it. Okay, we're adjourned, everybody. Thank you for your time and your patience.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night all.
Bye.
Thanks.